Glad that you made it on time. So native, giving an introduction, is an infrastructure layer that allows the exchange to be made into a feature. So native itself, we want to allow every project to be able to power themselves to be their own DEX with just a couple of minutes. So you can imagine native as something like Shopify for Web3, whereby users are able to very easily integrate and build their own DEX onto their website and dApps as easy as like just a couple of minutes and be there to earn their fees. So native itself allows users to be able to fully control their UX, liquidity management, and also pricing, just like how Shopify allows their users to be able to control their checkout, inventory, and pricing. Yep.
Cool. Hey guys.
Yourself.
So, sorry?
Experience.
Okay, so I'm tasked with a funny fun fact about myself. This is a very random ball.
Not right now. I'm asking your experience.
Oh, I'm gonna say that I'm very jet lagged. So I actually only slept, like, I woke up at 3 a.m. today, and like now I haven't slept at all. So that'll probably be my funny fact right now. Can't process things right now, but passing over to Sid over here.
Hey guys, I'm Siddharth Lalwani, CEO of Range Protocol. So with Range Protocol, we are trying to build the infrastructure for on-chain market making on top of concentrated liquidity AMMs like Uniswap v3. We strive to be like the heart of decentralized finance, pumping liquidity through the whole ecosystem and sort of making the whole DeFi efficient. On a high level, to understand what we do, consider us like a skilled chef trying to balance the ingredients of a dish. In this way, like trying to balance the ingredients of the market for sort of creating a very efficient, trustless financial infrastructure for anyone with an internet connection to access. So right now, how we see is basically there are three main players in the ecosystem: the traders, liquidity providers, and the project teams themselves who issue the token. So we want to optimize the experience for traders by optimizing the interaction for the other participants. So what we would allow is, say, project teams to create deeper liquidity for their token in a very capital efficient manner. And in terms of the liquidity providers, we will allow passive liquidity providers an opportunity to earn yield on top of their assets in a very risk managed manner. So yeah, that's on a high level what we do.
Hi all, I'm Daniel Helm. I lead DevRel at Scroll. Scroll is a layer 2 network. It is a ZK rollup. If you're unfamiliar with what that means, basically we are a layer on top of Ethereum that for users and devs looks and feels just like using Ethereum, but they get the benefits of cheaper gas costs, faster transaction times, more throughput. We can achieve this through the magic of zero knowledge proofs. And if you're interested in the technical bits, I don't know that we'll get into it in this panel, but we're really excited to be delivering a developer ecosystem, delivering a developer experience that means you can bring all your tooling and code straight from Ethereum mainnet into an L2 ecosystem using the latest and scaling technologies. And my past is working in DevRel. I do developer relations. I love to talk to developers. If you're building in the hackathon, come find me later and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, sorry for running late. I literally just got here from the airport. And my flight got delayed a little bit.
Is that the reason why you are wearing sunglasses?
And it's very sunny in Denver. So yeah, this is Steve. I'm with DoraHacks. We host hackathons in Web3 space with a lot of the partners. We're also the co-host of ETH Denver 2022. So this is my second ETH Denver. Very happy to see a lot of our partners in this panel. We're actually partnering with Scroll on a ZK grant towards global developers. I'm very excited to see how we can build with native in the future in the DeFi front. Yeah. Recently, we're building on something very interesting. I can share a little bit more in the future, later in this panel.
Yeah, later we will get very technical. Oh, sorry. That's my mistake. So now let's talk about some technical questions. What are the... Am I holding this wrong? What are the special features that you guys are building to bring mass adoption for crypto? technical features, please. Who want to start? Let's start with you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So some of the interesting innovations that we're bringing to the space recently is something we call public good staking. So we have been funding developers in the space since 2014, so which is 9 years ago. And one of the big questions when we run hackathons like ETH Denver itself is how we can sustainably bring grants and money to developers. It's actually very easy in the bull market where people are throwing money at developers, but it's actually particularly challenging this time in the bear market. You can see all of the company are like restricting their spendings, including grants. So we have been trying to solve that by introducing this new model called public good staking or public good validators, where DoraHacks right now operates validators for a lot of our partners' networks, and we use the validator proceeds to fund developers. And that has been working particularly well recently with our partnership with a lot of those in the Cosmos ecosystem. We have been validating EVMOS, Injective, and a lot of the other Cosmos app chains. Those validators are generating sustainable grants. Right now, we're able to distribute hundreds of thousands of dollars to developers monthly on our platform. They can tackle bounties, they can participate in those hackathons. And this brings a lot of interesting designs of whether we can actually build a decentralized staking protocol, because a lot of you might have noticed that centralized staking is being attacked by SEC recently. Like Kraken, Coinbase, they are being regulated and questioned. And also Ethereum has been challenged, like whether it can be identified as a security because of the staking features. So I think the space also lacks a decentralized staking infrastructure or protocol where everyone can stake multi-chain assets into this protocol freely in a decentralized manner. So we have been researching that front as well. But yeah, we're particularly excited about public good staking. And I invite you all to try out by participating in the different grant programs on DoraHacks.io. And we'll have more products to launch in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi. Do you want to go next, Daniel?
Sure. And the question is about Web3 infrastructure for mass adoption?
Yeah, what are the specific features that you guys are building to help that?
Yeah. So at Scroll, it's kind of what we're doing, right? We're trying to scale Ethereum. If you're an Ethereum user and you've ever been a part of trying to use the network when a really popular NFT mint is going on or something else, gas costs get exorbitant. We're trying to increase the capacity so that everyone can get in, right? Like on top of mass adoption from the cultural sense, we're also going to have to build up this infrastructure that is ready for that mass adoption. And so that's what we're trying to build. We're tackling that by building what we call the ZK EVM. We're not alone in doing this. This is an open community effort. We're working with, the Ethereum Foundation's privacy and scaling explorations. It's an open source project, but that's the heart of it. We're using ZK proofs that have this really special feature that you take a really big problem, do it on a supercomputer, and just have a proof of it afterwards that you can verify anywhere, including on a blockchain. So Ethereum mainnet is able to verify the work of an off-chain network, which means we can have a really big, powerful, wild version of Ethereum that Ethereum itself secures. And so that's what we're working on. And I think I think we're going to talk a little bit about where we're headed, but that's the big problem to be solved.
Great. So where are you headed in a short sentence?
Where we're headed is full decentralization. That's the major challenge for all the L2s. Everyone's got centralized sequencers, multi-sigs for upgradable contracts. And so the big issue is, what do we decentralize first, and how seriously do we take that in our roadmap? For us, that's decentralizing what we call our prover network. That's the GPUs and the supercomputers, in my analogy earlier, that are doing that work of proving that all the stuff that was done on the network, we have to run a lot of complex math over that before we commit that back to the L1. And we want that to be a fully open and decentralized network of people that can contribute their compute power to be able to secure the off-chain network.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sid?
Cool. Yeah. So at our end, I will actually echo like Daniel's point. Even for us, like the core ethos is basically We want to make Web3 move towards decentralization and trustlessness. So from our side, the key is more to be sort of making the whole decentralized finance efficient and more liquid. So our team comes from like a diverse background of digital asset market making and OTC trading operations, and we want to bring forth our proprietary strategies in making DeFi efficient. We are also building, like one of our key features that we're trying to build is like some kind of risk tranche-based strategies where we can allow liquidity providers of different risk appetites sort of participate in the ecosystem. One of the key strategic advantage that we see over other sort of competitors in the space who are trying to do active liquidity management on top of concentrated liquidity AMMs is that we bring forth our past experience and our robust trading infrastructure to do certain things like, say, optimizing rebalancing costs. So what we can do is we can aggregate liquidity from different venues in a trustless manner and execute that when we are rebalancing our positions through like just-in-time liquidity on top of Uniswap v3. What that would enable us is sort of provide liquidity and create vault-based strategies on like very concentrated ranges. So through that, we can sort of help project teams sort of reduce the liquidity mining incentives that are giving. Like if right now they're giving liquidity mining incentives of top of a 10 million Uniswap V2 pool, with us, they can achieve the same level of liquidity with like say 100K capital pool, and we can actively rebalance by aggregating liquidity from different venues. So that's something that I feel will make the whole DeFi a lot more efficient. And then if DeFi becomes like the main venue for price discovery and is as efficient in centralized exchanges, then I see like the whole, I would say the mass adoption would come straight away, and all the big systematic players who are sort of worried about lack of transparency and custodial risk of centralized exchanges, that all will go away.
So in simpler terms, who are your target users?
That's what I said, like we are trying to cater to all the three players that we see right now. For traders, we want to optimize their trading by offering lower slippages. For liquidity providers, we want to give them an option to earn passive yield on their assets based on whatever the risk appetite is. And then for project teams, they don't have to give out so much liquidity mining incentives, and they only need to have a smaller capital pool to have deeper liquidity. So for them also, like the selling pressure with that of the tokens will go away. Yeah. So it's like all the three players.
Great, thank you. Your turn, Twa.
Okay, so I like all the other panelists' answers. I think mass adoption itself, like there's actually different means of achieving it. Steve is like saying more like it does, DoraHacks does hackathons, and also public staking itself like is a move towards like getting more people involved. Then I think ZK Scroll is actually pushing the boundaries of what applications can actually be done with ZK Tech. And I think like Sid itself sees like DeFi itself, I guess efficiency is the bottleneck to like mass adoption. So I think for native itself, for us, we feel the issue is more towards trying to push like the whole UX front forward. So why so? Because we feel like at native is Web3 and crypto is actually the internet of value. So to really drive adoption itself, we need to get users to be really more cognizant of like understanding and being able to access that value, like the value of internet. So going back, you can look at DeFi itself. So Uniswap, Compound, what they did is they kind of popularized the MM model, the uncollateralized lending model, and brought a lot of users from there, very successful. Like OpenSea got NFT collections, NFT trading, so a whole wave of NFT people came in. So all these really just made like adoption happen because use cases came out and people leaped into the on-chain world, so away from the centralized world. So I think native for us, we want to empower the app layer. We want to be able to make, hello? Yeah. We want to be able to allow projects to very easily like deploy their DEXs onto their websites very easily without much overhead, and be able to directly integrate and interact with their users and do their swaps and earn a fees from there. So we want them to actually have the capability and control to manage and change their UX however they want using widgets. We be able to control their pricing models through a switch, be able to better manage their liquidity through a back-end dashboard. So all this is all done up just so that we can simulate something like how a Shopify experience is like like whereby you can imagine like a Shopify vendor is able to customize their whole checkout experience. We want to deliver that on native. So all in all, we want to make the whole experience of like having a like user needing to always jump to a third-party website to do a swap, a thing of a past. So everything on natively on the website, so that we can really improve the whole UX front in the on-chain world, so that in some sense mass adoption can kind of move a bit further. Yep.
What is the number one reason why a project want to become or create their own DEX?
I would say like fees itself, like being able to like have some means of like incurring fees and over to their treasury and not having it segregated to some centralized exchange is all really better towards the Web3 world.
Great, thank you. Now let's get into more challenging questions. What are the technical difficulties that you guys are facing for your current product design and future roadmap? Let's start in the middle. Sid?
Cool. Yeah. So I think for us, like again, I will sort of be a bit more specific to the DeFi side of things. So for us, like we want to offer like solutions for people with different risk appetite. So for that, sometimes you need to hedge exposure. Sometimes you need to put like certain risk management practices with the help of derivatives. So what I feel right now is like in terms of the derivative markets, be it options or perpetuals, it's relatively illiquid on the trustless venues. So like whatever strategies we used to say execute in, which we could execute in like a centralized environment for a particular player, if we want to make a retail facing product, so we want to do it in a trustless manner. So for those venues, what we feel is right now the liquidity is not there, but we're working with a few teams. There's like Panoptic who's trying to build like options on top of Uniswap v3. There are a few other, like GMX was revolutionary on how it has onboarded so many users. So there are a few products that are going forward and we want to work closely with them on sort of how we can use those practices. Other than that, I think on the technical side, what I feel is there is a certain level of technical complexity involved with Uniswap v3 in terms of like the LPs are not entirely aware of what kind of risk they are taking when they're providing liquidity. They cannot quantify impermanent loss and all. Even if like I'm talking with the quants at our team, it still becomes a bit too technical for sort of understanding. So I can expect like the retail LPs would find it a little bit more difficult. So with our product, we try to sort of abstract away all that complexity, but I think still just to put that narrative out, there needs to be a certain level of like research and literacy sort of being provided to them and awareness provided to them. I think I see it like as a journey. I think slowly we will move towards like a path where basically all these could be abstracted and people can just come in.
So what kind of or what level of information should really a protocol or product provide to the users, to the average users?
Right now, I'd say like in terms of like the DeFi infrastructure, like say Uniswaps and like a lot of other AMMs are already battle tested. So the project teams, just what they do is sort of they offer like liquidity mining incentives on top of these programs. So in terms of like that side, smart contract security, they can say it's all good. But in terms of like the user side, like project teams would never put out this thing like, okay, our token could be volatile and all that. So from that perspective, it's on the user side that they need to understand the risk when they're providing liquidity in case like a price swing happens, how much impermanent loss they can face. Like I've seen like many of the products that are there in the market right now, the way they sort of put out APY and the yields that you are getting is not actually clear. Like if you only quote like the trading fees that you are earning, that's not enough. It could happen that the impermanent loss is a lot more significant than the trading fees that you have earned. So I think the literacy needs to become, and I don't think it would come from the side of the project teams. It has to be at a layer above where basically someone abstracts all that away and provides it in a very simple to like easy to understand way.
Thank you. Hopefully you're going to be a good judge for this. Do you want to go next, Daniel?
Sure. Yeah, so technical challenges. I'm going to cop out a little bit and say I think the technical challenge is this idea of doing it right as opposed to just doing it fast, right? I think that's a constant tension in teams building in decentralized contexts. It's easier to build with training wheels or to centralize certain components. And I think most all the L2 teams are doing that, but at Scroll, we're thinking a lot about how do we make sure that we're building in a robust way, that we don't scale so quickly, that we are locked into things that make it harder to implement decentralization as quickly as possible as well, right? So that's a long way of saying, like, what is hard, I think, is the unsolved problems in the L2 or in the roll-up space, and specifically all the like nooks and crannies when you get into validating bridges and making sure you're staying, censorship resistant on your L2, and that you're doing like all the things you need to do to be a roll-up that truly inherits Ethereum's security. And so I think that's the biggest challenge. I think another thing for roll-up teams right now is, like, in this interim when things are still beta and testnet and everything else, differentiating yourself. When you are making an EVM and you're just saying, we're going to make it look and feel as much like Ethereum as possible, that can be a hard thing for lots of people to distinguish until you really get into the weeds of the technical pieces of it. So I think just on the narrative side, like, that part is kind of a challenge that I think about as a DevRel, thinking about how do I tell developers about this. But mostly what I do is I just tell them, go use the alpha testnet that was released today. So that's my shill. We have bounties around it too. So if you're hacking, deploy a contract. It's easy. Yeah.
I know you mentioned you guys are putting a lot of focus on decentralization, but based on your own judgment, do you think every single part of a, let's say, crypto project need to be decentralized?
Yes and no. I mean, I think there can be centralized components, but you have to constantly be weighing what are the trust assumptions that you're changing by centralizing a component, right? If we centralize a sequencer, and by virtue of that, we lose our censorship resistance or our permissionlessness to this network, or open up new attack vectors for malicious actors to get in there, unacceptable, right? Like, that is not something we want in the Ethereum ecosystem. Go play elsewhere. But if you are building, say, a dApp and you need some centralized aspect to make your product more user-friendly, I think Gnosis safe wallets are a great aspect of this, like version of this. The wallets themselves completely decentralized. You can interact with them in permissionless ways. But there are centralized components when you go onto the website, just to make the UX so much more accessible and easy. And so I think that's this balance that we have to figure out, and always be, as a community, holding projects' feet to the fire and saying, like, no, core aspects need to stay decentralized, and then the less core aspects, we can kind of like weigh it out and say, like, no, we're encouraging you to still build fast and build for the next billion users, which is going to take a high level accessibility. So
Great, thank you. I'm pretty sure there will be some people quoting you in the future. Sorry to put you in this rabbit hole. Do you want to go next, Steve?
Oh yeah. So yeah. I think DoraHacks products are actually pretty basic. It's a hackathon infrastructure. We do develop quadratic funding and minimum anti-collusion infrastructure on multi-chain. Our little contribution to the space. They're not as technical as a ZK EVM layer, I would say.
Not a competition, okay?
Yeah.
This is not a competition about technicality.
Yeah. But I did mention that we're looking into the future of decentralized staking. I think it's needed by everyone in the space, and particularly if you see where you go beyond Lido and all the LSD solution that you see in the Ethereum ecosystem, how we can provide a decentralized protocol in the multi-chain realm, where you can stake assets on Aptos, Solana, and Ethereum and Cosmos at the same time, maybe in one unified account system, because different chains have different addresses, and different chains have different elliptical curves for you to generate that access, your address with private keys. So we have been brainstorming solutions to that. I think this needed in the multi-sig applications, it's needed in decentralized staking. It can efficiently help you build something that can be a substitute to Coinbase and Binance. So I've been researching that ourselves. So that's like the difficulties that we see that don't even have a solution in the future, but we're definitely very interested in that. Yeah.
So when you say that might be something may not have a solution in the future. How do you guys usually tackle that, right? It's very hard to explain to the general audience, oh, there may not be a solution for this, so just wait.
Yeah, but we'll work on it. Yeah.
Meaning, explain it more. Forerunner, meaning you're going to try different solutions for that, or?
No. It's just like it's still in research like phase. You know, like ZK EVM is in engineering phase. They're like it will be shipped eventually. I think Scroll's mainnet will be shipped in the next 5 years. I think. I'm joking, but this is still in research phase. So it needs research in cryptography and all the different fields to actually see the possibility of like achieving that. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to share with the audience some more research outcomes, but not today.
Yeah.
You're off. Twelve.
All right. I think to this question, a lot of points actually I want to say have been covered by Daniel in a sense. So I feel that for the native team itself, like we face a lot of struggles because we are building something novel. It's not a fork. We're trying to test this concept of like having this be on decks concept. So I think the number one thing that we actually have to struggle with is actually how do we actually balance between like efficiency and decentralization, something similar to what just now you were saying, like sequences and all. So for us is our grand goal is actually to have everything as permissionless and open source as possible, if not everything. So what we have done over at Native is we deployed for our pricing technology, we deployed all our public pools and contracts all on-chain and all permissionless, all that. However, because our core ideology is, something I'll cover later, Native is we want to be everything modular. We want to allow things to be as flexible as we can. We want to be able to have this as kind of our core DNA, whereby we can actually satisfy different types of genre of clients so that we can really further the UX requirements of different projects. So the challenge of this is that when in this pursuit of this, we need to support every form of pricing model out there. So one of the more common pricing models out there is something that, like for PMMs, which is private market makers, they actually they do very capital efficient forms of pricing strategies and models. And to do that, we have to do some configurations to support that, so via RFQ. We also have, other than this, we also have other features that we intend to release out, which I cannot really say right now, is still in development. But these are actually like challenging the limits of blockchain. So at least the current blockchain, until ZK solves it, yeah, then we'll be able to kind of like push, we will always try to find the best solutions to try to strike the balance and try to make sure we are able to be both decentralized and efficient. So this is kind of our current predicament, I would say the technical challenges. So I would say we're looking forward to maybe if ZK Scroll rolls out, then we can possibly have some ways of making it more efficient for our infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah, every single Web3 infrastructure gonna partner together. We're gonna have an infrastructure DAO. I'm just joking. So can you please explain a little bit more the modularity of the design that you mentioned for the architecture? Like, how is it designed? Why is it important?
Yeah, so for Native itself, we design it in the way that instead of like in cases where Uniswap, using a swap as an example, having everything built into kind of one factory contract, we actually separated out the different parts of the swap into different components. This is actually to facilitate the flexibility of changing pricing models. So just to really like break it down to one aspect of it, users are able to very easily change which pricing models they want to use just as a click of a button on the dashboard itself. So say they want to use like Uniswap V2, like a constant product for a while. Maybe they want to, at a certain point, they want to support just a sell-only pricing model. This is all doable because of the very modular design. We also have a certain unique quirk about the design we have, we actually choose to actually have the wallet, treasury wallet, we would say, separated out from the storage of the assets, whereby it's a bit different from how Uniswap does it, whereby they actually have the assets itself parked inside the LP pools. For us, we separate a liquidity address, and we actually have a treasury and asset wallet address, so that the project teams will always be able to have full custody of their assets and be able to have full control of how they want to manage their assets.
Clap, clap. Show time is over. Let's talk about some more serious problems in crypto. So, considering all the recent incidents and hacking in crypto, right, such as the very infamous FTX collapse, Luna crash, Celsius, as a builder of the Web3 infrastructure, the fundamental layer, what are measures can be taken to enhance the trust and security in our industry? Because not only the retail users, but also like institutional users, they already lost faith in crypto, even though they are still dumping money. But like on the surface, they are still saying, "Oh, we lost faith." Yeah. So what measures are we going to take? Let's start with you, Twap.
So I feel before we talk about kind of the measures or solutions to kind of how to really solve this thing, I think we should kind of like think about why we actually got into this place first, like how did SBF actually lay down this giant rug pull to rug so many people around the world. So like Netflix will next time do a documentary for sure. So I think firstly, going back, unfortunately, SBF itself, he commands the liquidity itself. So be it his like nerdy MIT background, his Jane Street TradFi experience, he actually convinced like early like institutions to trust him and give him money, do his trading over there. So liquidity attracts liquidity, like flywheel goes. Then afterwards, all the price discovery and trading happens over the FTX. So this itself, if you really go down the fundamental level, is that users are not really fans of like SBF or FTX or maybe Tom Brady or what. So they just really want to have good pricing and liquidity, and maybe also like the trader for traders user interface for FTX. So I feel the whole question actually about how we actually should address this is actually how should DeFi in particular be able to improve the whole experience so that they can go head to head with CeFi to really acquire users. So that basically is like just how they can compete to get users to make the leap over to the on-chain world, whereby all the assets are transparent and non-custodial, so that we can prevent like another FTX of like this CeFi opaque like mess over there. So over at Native here, show time again. So Native itself, we allow a lot of projects to be able to integrate the DEX over in their own website itself, to be able to directly integrate the application in the application itself, the DEX, and they can actually configure how the liquidity and UX and all that things directly from the app itself, so that they can better serve their users base from there. So we feel that this itself will be able to better bring the whole experience of DeFi further from there. Because really, if you think about decentralized trading, going back into 2017 itself, like we had IDEX, we have Kyber back then. So Uniswap came in, they improved the whole experience itself, but we still lack like pricing, I would say user experience, everything to really further down to go to the next level, so that people can really say like they want to ditch CeFi and just use DeFi. So the Rails itself is still not super complete. So I feel that once we improve on like the pricing and liquidity from the native side, we can make that better leap towards that. And also the UX front, if we're able to have like the exchange itself built on the app itself, so users don't really need to go through that cumbersome UX, that also will like slowly make a smaller, better leap towards like giving better odds for DeFi to defeat CeFi. At least that's how Native's team feels about this.
What about risk management for users?
I would say for a Native itself, currently wise, we are working on transparency tools and risk management tools to actually help to balance out the, how to say, the user experience. When I say users, it's actually the people using the swap itself. Because for native itself, we have two sides of users, something like Shopify. So there's the people that actually are deploying the DEXs, and there are the people that are swapping on the DEXs itself. So what Meina is saying is more like on the user front, they're doing swaps. I guess we can employ some form of risk management and kind of like transparency tools to better enhance the experience on that.
Thank you, Twab. Do you want to go next, Sid?
Yeah, I think I will actually build on top of what Twab's saying, because both of the products, Range Protocol and Native, are working some way or the other in the DeFi side of things. But in terms of like my opinion, what I feel is to not have these kinds of events again. We actually need like out and out changes in the way we are interacting with DeFi. Like right now, the core ethos of our industry was decentralization, but all these failures have been due to the custodial nature of it, like lack of transparency, and the loss of faith has come from those kinds of things. So at my end also, I have interacted with a lot of like big players of the traditional finance, and they have been in the space for a while, but they're still in a phase of basically testing out the waters, putting in some small investments here and there. And the reason for that, why they are not going all in, is because on the DeFi side, infrastructure is not there. Like this whole thing started with Uniswap version 2 getting adoption, but Uniswap version 2 was a very generic curve, like XY equal to K. If you tell me right now that remove all the tier 1 exchanges like Binance, Coinbase out, and you only have Uniswap to trade, then that's a very bad UX. This industry won't get that kind of adoption that there is. Then basically Uniswap v3 came. It brought about a lot of flexibility for you to do things, but it became a lot more complicated. So right now we need to sort of abstract away that complexity. We need to make that Uniswap v3 interactions efficient. And if there is an infrastructure where the DeFi becomes efficient enough and it can become a venue of price discovery and it gets more trading volume than centralized exchanges, then definitely people would prefer that and not go towards an approach of basically where they're taking a custodial risk. These centralized exchanges have taken a route of sort of putting out proof of reserves and all these things, but it's still you are at some level or other, you are trusting them that they're providing you the right information or if we can make this whole interaction trustless, then I think that's the way to go, to be honest.
Yeah, proof of reserve. I mean, it's one master, but I don't think it's decentralized. So I still believe in code is law in a lot of sense as a developer. Please go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I think maybe less specifically in the DeFi realm, but I think great avenues for that is like, I feel like both of these answers are kind of improving the products, right? That yes, decentralization is an ethos we want, but we can't probably sell all users on that for mass adoption. And so the user experience needs to be there, and the product experience has to be better than what you're going to find in the centralized world. I think, panel's full of teams trying to make that happen for different avenues. Us specifically, we're trying to make that so that, scaling Ethereum means making Ethereum more accessible to more users for cheaper. And hopefully with that, we spurn lots of fun innovations like making ZK on the EVM cheaper to do. Maybe it means gasless transactions are a lot cheaper, so users don't feel like they have to onboard into the entirety of Web3 just to make a simple transaction. And yeah, there's a whole problem space there that I'm sure the people in the crowd are making hackathon projects about as well, and just improving the product space. So.
Yeah, let's shift the focus back a little bit into the security, right? How do we make the users or our partners to have more trust in our protocols or projects?
Yeah, I guess where I was going with that answer is that the issue of the centralization there is I don't know that we can force users in a decentralized context. All we can do is draw them, right? And so as we make a better experience and better rates for trading or whatever else, we just have to make it the obvious choice to use the decentralized route. And so that's where the security comes from, right? I don't know that we can force security in the centralized world. We just have to, we have to make a better user experience while at the same time maintaining our decentralization, maintaining our trustlessness, our verifiability, our censorship resistance, the core ethos that is who we are as an industry. We have to make sure that we hold that line and really, keep projects accountable for that.
Yeah, I think the balance between how user is trusting different protocols or how much of user experience they are looking for is really an ongoing discussion for the whole crypto space. And we probably should do another panel to do that. User experience or decentralization. Are they conflicting with each other? But yeah, please go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all the panelists here. I think the space is just too young for any brand to build a reputation in the space. Like the oldest company in the space is 10 years old, I would say. So, so you use Uber to take a taxi. You tried it about 10 years ago, and that worked. And they have been using that since then because every experience has been working out for you. You store your data, you store emails in Gmail, in Google, right? It's not decentralized, but still use it. All of your emails are there. All of your secrets are there. But you trust Google with it because it's a reputable brand that it has been providing this service to you in the past 10, 20 years. So I do believe that in the future, you will see more user-friendly products coming out of crypto. I see a combination of centralized products alongside with decentralized solutions. Yeah, so I won't say decentralized products will completely replace centralized solutions, but I do believe that there are more talents coming into the space and they will build really, really good products in DeFi, in everywhere.
To add to that, every single one of us are hiring. So if you guys are interested in working for any of those projects, please stay here. And with that being said, I would like to open to the question to the general audience. I would like, if anyone have any questions for any of the protocols or panelists up here? I see some hands. Okay. Wait for the microphone, please.
Hello, testing. Okay. First of all, thank you all panelists for your contributions to the space. My question is mostly for Daniel, but there might be input from other panelists as well. I think it's fair to say that the last year and a half has been really good for optimistic rollups. Specifically, Arbitrum and Optimism have seen a lot of capital inflows despite the market conditions. The OP stack being kind of adopted by Coinbase has been a really bullish development for optimistic rollups. And I was wondering how you view the next year, the next 3 years, maybe the next 5 years in the adoption of ZK rollups and how ZK technology is still very early and has kind of been developing in parallel to the adoption and the growing, more robust ecosystem, application ecosystems around optimistic rollups, and how you view projects like Arbitrum and OP Stack adopting this technology in the future and maybe adding ZK rollups or replacing the optimistic kind of functionality with ZK under the hood, or if it's going to be competing technologies and we'll see them exist in parallel, kind of like how we see Alt L1s and L2s compete for capital and TVL today, and just what you see the future looking like between the two kind of roll-up approaches.
Yeah, just like my personal view on this is I think we're going to have lots of L2s that cater towards different use cases, right? And so I think developers are going to grow an appreciation for the differentiation between each project. Obviously, the Arbitrum and Optimism teams are solving really interesting and hard problems. I love that they're solving them because some of those problems are ones that we're running into now. We get to look at what they did and kind of analyze, I think they've got this first mover advantage issue there. I think there's also first mover disadvantage, right? So in that sense, we're on Gwirly right now, which means we can really still do some rapid experimentation with emerging research and be really experimental with our designs and have a little bit of latitude for moving quick, where we don't have all this capital locked in that kind of risky way, right? So that's kind of it generally. I don't know enough about each project's roadmap to be able to answer where ZK is going to fit in. I believe Optimism's trying to have this kind of multi-fraud-proof client-ish system that maybe a ZK1 can fit into. But the team's going to be around all week, so find them and ask them for sure. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
Great. I gotta take another question from the audience. Yes, please.
Hey, okay. So my question is very simple. It's for Range Protocol. I'm really intrigued about what you said, that you're helping projects to have smaller liquidity pools or kind of use less liquidity for the same impact. And then you mentioned the Uniswap v3 as too complex and with a lot of inefficiencies. Can you tell a little bit more about the nature of your product? What is it that makes you so different from Uniswap? What's your secret formula, if you can share?
I think to illustrate like how we would be doing these things differently is like say, if like say a project is offering liquidity mining incentives for their project tokens pool. So what happens in that case is like if I am a rational LP who's providing liquidity to that pool, then I would definitely not want to miss the liquidity mining incentive. So in the case of Uniswap v3, what happens is like say, if there's a vault-based product which is being incentivized, so what would happen is that vault-based product might be like a very significant % of the pool. So if that pool, like the vault becomes say 80% of the pool, and they keep a concentrated liquidity range. In that scenario, what would happen is once you reach the boundary, and then say you have to rebalance, you remove the liquidity, then basically you were the most of the pool. So at that time, if you try to rebalance, the slippage could be like 20, 30, 40%. So basically that model won't work. That's why right now the project teams that have tried to tackle this problem, what they have done is basically, if Uniswap v2 was an infant, now the way Uniswap v3 is being used is basically that infant has volatile. That's all. So basically still they're keeping very wide ranges, so it is indirectly replicating Uniswap v2 all over again. But what we can do is say, we will create like a payment for order flow model, where basically say the point, you only have a small pool, but at the point of rebalancing, if say that token has liquidity on Binance or other venues, what we can do is work with other external private market makers to sort of bridge that liquidity in a trustless manner. For that, we would be using just-in-time liquidity. Later, we would be sharing a lot more of research on top of that. But with that, what we can do is you only need like 10K, 20K liquidity, and it would be do way better than like a 10 million Uniswap pool, because it would be aggregating liquidity for Binance, Binance, Coinbase, all these venues together.
Do you have a follow-up question, or you're good?
No, this is excellent, thank you. Great explanation.
Great. Thank you. I think with that, I would like to wrap up our panel today. But if you want to hear more, good news, we're hosting another panel on March 2nd at 4 p.m. at the Clock Tower. And it's also about Web3 infrastructure, but I have invited panelists from, this panel will be more from a business angle. So the panelists will be VCs, gaming projects, NFT projects from the industry. So make sure if you would like to join our next panel, scan the QR code behind me or in front of the venue, and then you can sign up. There will be free food and drinks there too. There will always be free food and drinks with Native, okay? Last time showing, all the core founding team members of Native are here, so you're welcome to talk to any of us. We'll be able to answer the questions for you. If not, we'll put that in the backlog. Do you guys have any last words?
Hack with Skrull. Come say hello. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, say something cute, please.
Yeah. DoraHacks team will be around as well, so if you're interested in grants, we're here for you.
I'm scared of it. I'm good.
Yeah. Hello? Yeah, come to our second panel. Yep, what she says. So,
Yes. Okay, let's face the camera and make a
much
really
shield.
good face. Picture time. Yeah, and yeah, feel free to come to us. Thank you guys so much. Grab more drinks and food.